When you talk to a lot of Brexit supporters, or you, like me, you live in an area that heavily supported Brexit, you very, very often hear the conversations about leaving the EU. Certainly, I did, back in again 2016 and post since then, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that a lot of these Brexit supporters voted for Brexit because they believed in their heart of hearts that the Brexiteers were telling them that if they vote for Brexit, that somehow their lot in life was going to be made better. That these left behind areas that voted for Brexit were going to get their final just rewards, that it wasn't the government, which again it was, and more specifically the Tories, who had been responsible for taking much of the wealth and the services out of the area and not replacing it or even putting in programs to help build up these areas more. Of course, it was the EU that was somehow responsible for all that, when I've said, I don't know how many times on this channel, some of the less behind areas that voted for Brexit were the biggest recipients of EU development funds, of which, as of, I think, end of this year, I think a lot of that money stops, and a lot of councils, especially due because of austerity, because of their loss of income, because of austerity, relied more and more on those development funds. Now that fund is gone, no longer exists, been replaced with the new town fund, which again isn't going to do anywhere near close to what the EU development fund did, or even fund the correct places that need that funding. So there is a real serious question to ask, is when eventually will these levers turn on the Brexiteers? And William Keegan here puts it exactly right, that the pride of these people may not endure as the level of poverty that these people have been enduring rises instead of decreases. How long will they really, swallow their pride and admit that it wasn't, the Brexit that they voted for that has made their situation worse? Because again, according to a lot of them, when you speak to them or you listen to them, they were of the, of the mind that people like Nigel Farage, Boris Johnson, and all the brother Brexiteers were telling them, look, if you vote for Brexit, your lot in life is going to be made better. And I don't know how many times we've covered stuff on this channel where that we just know is not going to be the case. But anyway, let's dive into this article then. But before we do that, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, as well as a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for all those people who do support the channel that way. So today's article comes from The Guardian, and the title is, Leavers' Pride May Not Endure as Britain's Poverty Rises. Just how long will it take the electorate of this blighted country to realise that they have been conned by the Brexiteers? By this, I do not mean all the electorate. After all, nearly half of those who voted on the fatal June day of 2016 were in favour of remaining in the European Union. And as a proportion of those eligible to vote, the Leave tally was about 37%. Since then, to use a phrase used much by the generation, many older Brexit voters have dropped off the perch. Meanwhile, the evidence is that the young who have come onto the voting register are very much predominantly in favour of the EU. The evidence mounts that Brexit is almost an unmitigated disaster. The slogan "Get Brexit Done" has been supplanted by supply chain issues. As a direct and a wholly predictable consequence of Brexit, Britain is economically, culturally, reputationally, politically, and diplomatically poorer. Now, I say almost unmitigated disaster because there is a classic unexpected consequence of Brexit. Induced labour shortages. They may have led to something of the better heeled Brexit that healed Brexiteers did not want, namely a revival of trade union bargaining power. However, I didn't think that it needed an insane act of making a country poorer to improve the wages and the working conditions. A more humane government would have been seeking to do that anyway. Yet, as my old friend and Observer colleague Alan Wilkins used to say, there it is. But structural changes in the economy take years to work their way through. The airwaves are to replete the problems of the employers are having in replacing continental European employers who have, surprise, surprise, got the impression that they are no longer wanted in a country by our so-called Home Secretary and her colleagues. The supply chain problems, according to some reports, mean that the Brexit chickens may be coming home to roost. But not only to Nando's. One of the many gross charges against the Brexit gang is that they failed to appreciate how often, almost after half a century of EU membership and well over a quarter of a century in the single market, Britain had become an integral part of the European economy. There were parallels with how the US economy operates. People, goods, and components move around freely. Now I am as much stuck by the letter from an Observer reader called Arnold Glickman, who last Sunday, he thinks that by emphasizing the rational economic arguments, we Remainers are missing the point. That is, that both those for good and against Brexit have viewed based not on an economic, but on emotional grounds. Emotion. There is a passage in Isaiah Burns' The Crooked Timber of Humanity, where he reminds us the Bible, Homer, the Greek tragedies, Caligula, Virgil, Dante, the French classical tragedies are all full of profound emotion. But the emotional grounds for the Brexiteers are all about taking back control, something they have singularly failed to achieve. I freely confess to wanting to be part of the European Union, or as close as one can get given the fiasco that has been created, for many emotional and cultural reasons. But in my view, and I think I speak for the many, not just emotional, but is very much based on an economical reasons, as the damage wreaked by a departure becomes increasingly obvious. Which brings us to the impending autumn double, or I not refer to the welcome prospect of the Cambridge and Cheswick at Newmarket, but the struggle between the Prime Minister and the Chancellor over the future levels of public spending. The song "Hey Big Spender," which he does not heard in his youth, evidently had quite the impact on Alexander Johnson. Westminster gossip is that he's notwithstanding a very handsome salary funded by the taxpayer, he finds it difficult to finance himself, but he is happy to make all manner of spending commitments, while his Chancellor does not know how to even finance them without more damage to estimate public services, either by cuts or insufficient increases. The truth is that the country continues to want European standards of public service and healthcare, but nothing like the levels of taxation that our other fellow Europeans are prepared to pay. As for Chancellor Sunak, and has been espousing Brexit, he has helped to make the country poorer, thereby eroding the Exchequer's tax base. I think this is going to catch up very quickly with the Brexiteers. Bill Clinton strategist James Carville famously said that what mattered was the economy stupid and health. Let us hope that the concerns about the economy and the problems of the NHS will eventually get the better of the Brexiteers' emotions. I think eventually that is what will happen. We've said this before. Sooner or later, the Brexit supporters are going to cotton on. Since, of course, the Hartlepool by-election, the voters in Hartlepool were very quickly to go to their MP, their newly elected MP, and basically start saying, okay, where's our money? Now we've put you in office, but you've been talking about all this money. Where is it? And of course, as you know, or have been following this channel, you know very well that the Levelling Up Fund and that money isn't going to be coming to some of those places, if not at all. And some places are just not going to get enough money to be able to affect actual change in those areas. But, I hate to say we told you so, but we did. So, as always, Thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next.